Live from Los Angeles, welcome back to Good Morning LaLa. And hashtag Friday Feels. We love talking about creating a life you love. Dr. Gedroic is with us to talk about the old way of thinking, genetics, versus the new way, epigenetics. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks.
So, how would you define the study of epigenetics?
So epigenetics is the new area of medicine that is talking about how our environment is influencing our genetic expression. So basically it's boiling down to choices: how we eat, how clean the air we breathe, the water that we're taking in, all the chemicals that we put on our skin. We don't really think about how these things are influencing our internal chemistry. And basically what scientists have found is that these chemicals can get into the DNA and affect our genetic expression. And so that is really the heart of where chronic disease is on the rise today. And that's kind of the meat of why we have these health epidemics that we did not have 50 years ago.
Wow, it's so fascinating to me. I love this conversation. So of course, when it comes to genes, there are some genes that are a little bit more hardwired, things like eye color, height, that you can't really affect or change that much. But there are other things that can be fully and deeply affected. So can you talk to us a little bit about what kinds of different genetic expressions exist?
Sure. Well, so the older way of thinking, basically, as we grew up, was that if our parents had heart disease, our parents had high cholesterol, this was almost an inevitability. And as we aged, the minute we showed up at the doctor and they said, well, guess what? You're now 35. You have high blood pressure like dad. Okay, we take our pill and we accept the fact that that's our genetics. But this is really not true. These high blood pressure syndromes, so many of the chronic diseases today can absolutely be warded off if we take care of our body. And there's many different tenets of how we do that. But basically the idea is that this is within our control. We do not have to have the chronic illnesses of our family population.
But if, say, you're living in Los Angeles, where, some 11, 13 million people live in LA, and there's pollution that is affecting us, what do we do to stop that?
Right. So taking care to be as clean as possible, really paying attention to everything that we're putting on our bodies. Our skin eats. I basically tell my patients, pretty much put on your skin almost what you want to put in your mouth. That's how, we really have to think of our bodies in this clean water and sweat. So we all know that exercise is great for our health, but we never really quite understood that probably one of the main reasons that it's good is because sweat is a primary organ of detoxification. This is why sauna has become a very effective strategy for recovering health, because sweat is a way that the body can excrete toxins and clean ourselves. And when you're living in an urban area, obviously more thought has to go into that. When you're living in a cleaner area, you can count on the food and the water supply being even better for you.
It's become almost trendy to detox, especially here in Los Angeles, or La La Land, if you will. But is there a point when detoxing is too much?
Yes, absolutely. And I always talk to my patients about moderation, because anything can get overdone. The actual intersection of how detox can influence us in a negative way is that when we sweat, we are also sweating out minerals. Most of us know about electrolytes and minerals from the perspective of replacement. But if you don't replace after you sweat excessively, you will absolutely deplete yourself. And this is when muscle cramps start and enzymes in the body don't work as well. And though that can be just as much of a problem for patients.
Wow. So what's the research around fasting or cleanses?
Yes. So very, very interesting. Another major part of the book is talking about the microbiome, which is our gut organ, and how that's influencing our immune system effectively. And so what it turns out is that the reason that you can have this whole disparate view on diets, from the caveman diet to the China study, really reporting tremendous health benefits on either side, is because these different dietary interventions, including intermittent fasting, are influencing the organisms in our gut. And depending on which kind of organism, bacteria, fungus, or parasite, is overgrown, patients will have different responses to these diets, many favorable. So
then in your book, do you have separate different diets that are good for different conditions?
We didn't go into the specifics of the diet, but basically the book is really taking just the average reader through a very intimate understanding in a friendly way of how the gut organ is set up and how it's helping to keep us in optimal health, including the liver and the gallbladder, and then basically how our immune system sits right in the gut and is interfacing out to the rest of the body. So it's showing us how it's so important to eat well, not just for calories, not just to keep our bodies lean, but really to keep our immune system strong so we don't develop things like cancers and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, which they're now linking to the gut.
Wow, incredible. You're like a walking, talking encyclopedia. Well, internet, for those folks out there that may have not heard of encyclopedia. Like, when you were
talking Google.
right? Yeah, Google, there you go. When you were like putting this book together, and I can only imagine like the amount of research and science that goes into that, it's got to be overwhelming. But you're able to sort of take these very complex principles and break them down into something that's digestible that people can apply in their lives. Was there anything within that surprised you the most? Like you just started looking into the research and saying, wow, this is something I didn't expect.
So first of all, it took over 5 years to write the book. And there were several versions of it. The last version actually was much more scientific and headier, and it would have lost readers. So we really diluted it back. There are other books coming now with more detail around specific conditions. I'm working on one for autoimmune disease that will provide very specific interventions. But truth be told, my patients have been my teachers. I mean, I owe everything to my patients. I have an amazing group of, always under active care, but now it's been over 6,000 that we've worked with all different problems from, some of the more difficult diseases in medicine today. And through recovering them, their journeys have really steered me to the research. And I read constantly. I'm the mom on the soccer field that has like 25 articles, and I'm sitting there in my chair. I read all the time in my spare time.
Well, thank you so much for being with us and for the insight you've shared. Please tell everyone where they can find, follow you, and get your book.
Okay, so it's basically I practice at the Gedroic Medical Institute. It's gedroiccenter.com, and there's actually going to be a book signing in September 5th. I'm from New Jersey. It's back there at the Buyer Ford. And so thank you all very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Stay tuned. We'll be back tomorrow. Good morning, LaLa.